Hello, welcome to the First Class Agers, our podcast for the curious, fun-loving agers. Today we have an interesting topic which connects up with what we talked about previously, how to deal with the obstacles that you experience as you age and take control of your life. When I was thinking about this, I said, my name is Marlene, and today I'm speaking with Ido. And Ido Laufer, first, introduce the name Fall Control. Ido, I'd like to ask you how you decided to put those two words together, Fall Control. Could you please explain? I think it might be very interesting.
When I started the program of teaching the elderly to fall safely and how to prevent a fall, the fall prevention in a different way from the conventional way, I was thinking about what is the main issue here, because the falls themselves by themselves are not the issue. The issue is the loss of control over one's life due to a fall, and the feeling of losing the control over everything around us. When we are aging, we start feeling that our body is not functioning the way it used to be. Our cognition is reduced. Everything is reduced, and there is a constant struggle to keep in control. And the thing that I'm teaching is how to control this situation, this very uncomfortable situation of losing the control over your life. And it comes into an extreme in a case of a fall. And if you do not know how to control the fall and how to prevent it and how to fall correctly, then the result might be a complete loss of your control over your body, and you don't know what's going on. You have to go to be committed in the hospital, and then of course you don't have control over your body because the staff over there tell you what to do, what do you eat. You might be casted. A lot of very unpleasant things. So when we, with a group, of course, that Marlene participated with me, we started to think about what is the core issue here. And the core issue is the control over our life in an extreme situation of a fall. And that's how we came with your fall control.
The fall control, it also connects up with what you said now. If you take control, you're dealing with obstacles, you're preventing the negative side of life. And with all the unpleasantness and the loss and the changing and the obstacles, it's a struggle. What does this involve? You need a certain discipline. And you being a sportsman, you know very well about the subject of discipline, where you have a goal, you set your goal, and you try to achieve the goal. And this is the goal I think we discussed several times, how to age well. Of course, everybody ages. The difference is how to do it with positive results. And while struggling to cope with the obstacles and struggling to cope with the losses that you mentioned, you have to try and pay attention to understand how to do this with your self-discipline. And that is your responsibility, because if you don't do it, nobody's going to do it for you. And this is the lesson, I think, that when you demonstrate how to take control of your fall, you are trying to not only show how to understand what you're talking about, but to actually show how to do it and to set this goal to achieve mastering how to fall with control. When you talked about having the discipline after recognizing that there is such a thing of control, what exactly did you mean when you said, I have the responsibility and I have to learn how to achieve this goal? Can you give an example?
Please ask me again about what exactly is the question.
What does it mean to take control of falling? It's not clear to people who haven't experienced it because it happens so quickly. You don't have time to think. You don't understand what to do, how to respond. And what you're doing by demonstrating is how to respond to something that's happening very quickly. How do you learn such a thing?
You covered a lot of things that I would really like to relate to. I'll start with what you asked me at the bottom of your stuff, and then I'll go back. And then what does it mean to take control over a falling situation? First of all, it means to be mindful to your balance and to be mindful of when you're losing your balance. So if you are mindful to things, you can act. This is one thing. That being said, when we're falling, it's usually a surprise and we cannot really prepare for it. And then it has to come out automatically. And the body needs, I would say that the cognition is in the muscles, not in the brain.
So you internalize, actually, right? It becomes part of you.
Yes, and the main question that being asked repeatedly is, how can you learn how to fall when a fall happens so quickly? And the answer that I came up with experience is that it is exactly what my students and the people who train with me, this is what they say. They tell me, we had no control of what's going on. Our body just reacted the way that you taught us. So,
Ido, excuse me, this is so true. Your students are saying, without even the degree of psychology, it's stimulus response. What happened? What did they tell you? In their words, they're talking about stimulus response. They internalized something they learned that you demonstrated how to do. In effect, it became part of them, right?
Yeah. It's something that it's funny because the question and the answer is the same, exactly the same terminology is being used. Because when people are asking me, they're asking me, how can you prepare when it is happening so quickly? And then the people who have fallen till today are telling me, I could not prepare because it's happening so quickly and my body just responded.
Perfect.
And we know, how do we know if the body just responded, if they acted the way I taught them or not? There are two things to know. Actually, three things. One is by the scratches. If they have scratches not on their palms, but they have scratches all over
the forearm. Arm. Yeah.
The forearm. It means that they stretch the forearm exactly the way I do. So this is one response, or one answer of whether they executed what they've learned or not. Another answer is, if they are mindful of the fall, many of them are just, I teach after you fall, just lie down and check yourself and see what's going on with your body. Don't just stand up. So when people are doing so, they are just feeling their body on the ground and they are checking the way their body is spread.
It's like the expression, stop, look, listen to your body. And then what do they tell you?
And they say that they see their body, that their body is spread on the ground exactly the way I taught them, which is an amazing thing. And the third answer about how do we know if they felt properly is that they stand up and they feel better, or they feel with more power instead of less power. They feel, there's a good word for it, I'll come up with, but they feel that they gained more from the fall and they did not lose. They have more confidence instead of less confidence, and they fear less of the fall instead of fearing more of the fall. It means,
In other words, what you're saying is they achieved the goal. Why did you do what you did? Because you learned something and you practiced it, you set your goal and you achieved it. That's why they tell you at the end. It happened so quickly. I took control. They didn't even realize it because their muscle memory took over. I see you're nodding your head because you've heard this many times. Can you give some examples maybe that you remember that happened recently? It could be a new student, first experience. It could be a student who has recurrent falls.
The best answer is I have it recorded in Hebrew, but after the last fall of my father, his recent fall, it happened some 3 weeks ago. So I interviewed him about the fall. And one of the main things that he told me, I asked him, tell me now, do you feel empowered by the fall or you feel discouraged by the fall? He said,
exactly.
Of course I feel empowered by the fall because I know I can deal with it. Nothing happened. I just stood up and kept on going. The same happened just on last Thursday. Tammy Ezer has been training with me for, I think, for a year and a half or so, maybe a bit more. And she has already fallen 3 times since she started practicing with me. And again, this Thursday, we had a chat, we had a phone call because she needed to tell me about the success that she experienced. And again, she said it was something, she was so surprised after she looked at the scene when everything happened. There were so many places to break a leg because it was
where did it happen?
She went from her balcony into the house, and there is a step there, and just after the step there are the rails of the sliding door, and she missed the step or something happened and she fell and nothing happened to her. She could have broken her leg because of the step or because of the rail, because it's a sharp rail that she has. Except for a few scratches, nothing happened. She had some
She
bleeding.
Took control without even realizing it, right?
Apparently, she didn't actually lose the control. She fell and she was instinctively with control. Nothing happened to her. She observed her body. She relaxed as the way I teach my student. She kept on the ground, started to feel her body again to see what's going on. And then when she screened her body, she felt and she saw the way our body parts are spread, that she did exactly as I taught without even thinking. So this is what happened. And I would like to talk about the goal setting, because it's something that it is a constant reminder for myself of how to live. And many people talk about goal setting. And I think that Tony Robbins is very, very good of, he has a very good method of setting goals and how to pursue your goals. And in order to have a good goal setting, you need to know what you want and you need to know why you want it. And then
This is the self-discipline that I started talking about. If you don't limit yourself, you have to know which direction you're headed, then you get frustrated and you give up. But in order to be successful, and if you know where the goal is, then you'll continue. So could you give an example, for instance, of setting the goal? How do you do this at the very beginning? And then how do you know that you're progressing as you do it?
The same goes for me personally and the way I teach it to my students. Of course, I didn't invent anything. I learned it some from Tony Robbins and some from Dean Graziosi and some from other parts, some from my father. Many, many things are connected. And the first way to think about it, or the most important thing, is to know that if we are not setting the goal for ourselves, somebody else is having the control over our life, which has to do with control. We talked about control. If you are not taking control over the situation or the outcome of the situation, another outcome will happen, not necessarily the one that you want, or there are less chances it will happen the way you want. And after you know you want something, in order to have the self-discipline, it has to be something that is meaningful for you. If you do not know why you want it, so what is the purpose for it? And then we can see people who go and, for example, go to college and study things that they don't really need, they don't really want to do, because their motivation wasn't their own motivation, but their parents or their surroundings. And then there is a crisis after a while, because the person says, why did I do so much for so long when it's something that I don't really want? It has no meaning for myself. So
this connects up again with motivation, which we talked about, remember? And when we mentioned motivation, and you gave examples of people who say, I'm afraid I will fall, and because I'm afraid, then I don't go out as much, or I'm not as active as I used to be. And if they say they're motivated and want to learn, to try to do something about it, that's the goal. Have you had examples of people who said to you, I talked about it, I didn't know how to do it, and I kept avoiding it and delaying it, and then they tried it? Could you give an example maybe of somebody who succeeded?
Unfortunately, most of the people who start training are the people that have undergone at least one bad fall that hurt them. And then they say, okay, we really know we've gone through the pain, we've gone through the frustration, we've gone through the depression after a fall, and we want to avoid it the next time. It means that their motivation is, we say, with the stick and the carrot, they got the stick and say, we do not want to feel the stick again.
Enough is enough, yeah.
Enough is enough. Another motivation is, I think it's better motivation, just to sit down and think about what do we want to do for the rest of our lives? How do we want to live for the rest of our life? And how do we achieve it? And if we want to remain independent, if we want to keep being active socially, the way that we like to, and leave the house without fears and participate with everything that we want, this is, in order to do so, falling and controlling the fall is one of the key places, or I'd say the key levels that we need to confront and we need to achieve in order to achieve our main goal of living and loving our family the way that we want, our family and friends.
In other words, take action and responsibility. It's self-responsibility. Because if you want to remain independent, then you have to do something about it. And if you start thinking about it and delaying, nothing will change. Again, we're talking about changes. It's all part and parcel of the same growth. A person, when they're aging, is also growing in the sense of learning something that will make his life maybe easier, it will make it better. And using this is the best example of what's your mindset. If you know that you have fallen and you don't do anything about it, well, that's being very passive and accepting your limitation. But if you know that you have fallen and you're still saying to yourself, I have to do something about it, then the motivation will lead you to have a goal. And that's exactly the example you gave of people who have fallen, who then start to learn.
It's not funny, but it's something that I get confronted with even today. A lady called me and asked me to start teaching her. And it's unfortunately, I told her I can teach you, but not how to fall because you're over the tip.
What did that mean?
It means that she had one fall too much. And after this fall, once you cannot walk and you cannot stand by yourself and you need a cane or you need a walker, the situation is changed. It's another method. Everything is changed. And had she called me just before the fall, and I could have started teaching her, even if she had the same fall, but she cannot learn the same thing as she could have learned the previously, because her body is changed, her mind is changed.
Yeah.
And the limits and also the way she can position her body on the ground, it's different because of the injury. So time is important. If you say it will not happen to me, or I'll do it when I really need to. If you're over 70, you need to. There's no question.
If you look at the ladder, here we go again. You either go up or down. And if you're on the way up, you're doing something about it. You're not waiting to fall down, because every step you take is in a different direction. If you're being active and doing something about it, then there's change for the better. But if you're passive, you're going to go down a step further. And then you're going to have to make a greater effort to succeed. And that's what you meant, she was over the tip. And how did you deal with this? How did she react?
I told her that I'm so sorry, I cannot help her with her current situation. At least I cannot help her online, not with the programs, the recorded programs that I have currently online. It is not for her. It's for different physics or it's the physics she had a month before, not now. And I can help her, maybe, I don't know, if she comes and I'll see what the situation, because I cannot just give her recorded stuff or recorded lessons without seeing her, watching the way she moves. And even then.
How many examples do you have? Let's say the majority of the people that you teach, have they fallen once or twice? Or have they heard about you through somebody who fell and took control of his life?
I'd say the vast majority are people who fail at least once, and then they look for the solution, how to escape the next fall. So this is the vast majority of the people. And of course, there are people who fall and say, okay, there's nothing to do about it, or I'm not committed enough, or I'd say the goal settings. They do not set their goals to have better lives. And if you do not declare that you're going to have a better life, and you're not declaring that you are about to step up the ladder and make the effort, you'll just slide down. And then you'll slide comfortably to a reduced life. And this is what's happening.
And this is the thing that we've been talking about, is that if you're aware, stop and assess what's happening. Look and listen to your body. And with these changes, it's a constant awareness that changes continue because it's part of the dynamics. And aging doesn't have to necessarily be negative if you take responsibility. Of course, we're talking about being independent and trying to prevent becoming dependent. But even at the very beginning, as you said, if somebody has already fallen, if they try to be aware that there's help to prevent becoming dependent, then they'll do something about it. The goal is to find out how to control themselves. Could you give an example? What is, it sounds like a very intellectual approach. What is the key to being aware of how to fall? For instance, how do you prepare yourself? Are you so tense that you can't relax? Or which method do you recommend as your tool that you use? In terms of impact.
First of all, it's better to be relaxed when you hit the ground in order to have a softer fall. And another thing is not to stretch your arms forward or backwards or to the side, but leave them closer to your body, because your opponent is not around you, it's beneath you. So stretch your arms downwards, and then once you do so and you are relaxed, even if only with these two instructions, if you will perform them in real time, the energy of the fall would be dramatically reduced.
So the answer is to look and listen to what you're saying, right?
Yes.
I see you're smiling, because it comes back to the same key point, that if you take control in a situation that happens so quickly, it should, and it most likely will, turn out to be a better situation.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think we're in the peak of our episode now.
I think we reached it. We reached our goal, and hopefully other people will too. So I think with a good feeling, after understanding what we've been talking about and what we've introduced to the other people, let's continue looking out for the positives and prevent falls by taking control of the aging situation, accepting the changes, and going along with them. Thank you for being so positive about it, because you've taken control of a situation that can be a negative one, and we've turned it into a feeling of optimism. There's something to do about it.
So I can thank everybody for listening to the First Class Agers, the podcast for the curious, fun-loving agers. If you like this episode, Please subscribe so you'll get the new episodes. Please share with your friends, the people that you think that might be interested. Thumbs up for us if you like the show, the program. It's always helpful. And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye for now.